welcome to our last LinkedIn Live event for the year. We are very excited to do that. We've done transportation and tequila. We've done whiskey and warehousing. Today, we are going to stick with something very simple, liquor and labor.
Yeah, let's jump right into it, Brian. And today's topic, as you mentioned, is labor. As we go along and we have this conversation, if people have any questions, just feel free to comment in the comments section below. We're happy to answer any of those questions. If we can't get to it today, we'll come back and make sure that we respond. But before we get started, I'm Brad Forrester, founder and CEO of JBF Consulting, and I'm joined by my friend Brian Carlson from Cornerstone Edge. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah. So from a transportation perspective, Brian, just to kick things off here, we've had a lot of client questions coming in the past few years about how can we leverage the TMS to really smooth out the volume of orders that are flowing into the DC. What are the right technologies and the tactics that we can use as implementers so that we don't bomb our DC on Monday and then have a glut of activity on Tuesday? Let's smooth it out so that we can have better labor planning. So these are very relevant conversations today because labor is very difficult to manage. It is very volatile. Labor is hard to come by. Those are the challenges. So the technology is available today in today's modern TMS and logistics applications, in addition to warehouse management systems and labor systems, which I'm sure you'll speak to, Brian. They can really help smooth the peaks and valleys of order flows that impact labor in the DC. So we can leverage now upstream systems like a TMS to really better optimize the flow of orders that drop into the DC. And many clients are starting to think about this and take action and implement these types of things.
Well, and Brad, those are great points. And as we looking at a warehouse management system or a transportation system, those would be some really key points we talk about today. In most conversations, a lot of people want to talk just about a labor management system, how you can optimize labor through engineering labor standards, through other methods. And really, there's a lot of other components to this that can allow us to leverage other technologies to increase labor throughput and reduce those peaks and valleys. One of the things that we've really seen as we get into this is taking the macro transactions, and a lot of it's normally people think about the outbound side, but a lot of the savings can be on the inbound side. Some of those things are related to dock door assignment. Where do you put the dock door based upon the flow of goods? Understanding appointment scheduling as it relates to the throughput, your labor resources, et cetera. That sounds pretty common, but very few companies truly leverage the technology between the two systems well. One of the things that we've seen is leveraging that technology, leveraging put away, even leveraging some automation. We have one customer that ended up saving inbound labor savings by 50%. And so just taking the technology improvements and utilizing them properly can make a big difference.
Yeah, no question. That's a very surprising number. It's good. It shows the impact that these techniques can have. You mentioned inbound, and I started with a focus on outbound, secondary network distribution. But to your point, inbound is also now possible to really orchestrate and have a material impact on labor through technologies like real-time tracking and visibility, yard systems, dock and appointment scheduling systems. And many of these applications now are open APIs. The integration is a little bit more approachable, and we're finding clients can integrate these traditionally non-integrated applications and then start to really synchronize so that as inbound ETAs start arriving from our visibility application, we know how much labor is needed for receiving and put away. We know on the inbound side, based on how many trailers are coming into the yard or how many are at the gate, we get a lot more granularity of transaction information that we can then integrate into an overall orchestrated kind of primary network supply chain. And for the purposes of labor, all of those things really can have a material impact on labor planning. So thank you, Brian, for opening up that inbound side of the equation as well.
Well, and a lot of people talk about inbound as it relates to technology, and some companies don't manage the ASN information very well. So an incoming advanced shipment notice, a lot of times people look at it from a purchase order standpoint, just recognize, hey, if there's a PO coming in and here's the information. But if we truly leverage an inbound container or truck that has maybe multiple POs on it, understanding the level at the pallet level of what's on the individual pallets and taking that on the inbound side can dramatically also reduce your labor, because if you trust the trucking and the vendors and all the process of data coming in, you can certainly reduce the amount of touches and the amount of counting that you have on the inbound side, which of course saves a significant amount of labor as well.
That's right. And I think the cost of this orchestration is really diminishing as the technology advances. I mentioned APIs previously, but also many clients have, thankfully, put a big focus or a larger focus on master data quality and also kind of cross-departmental or cross-functional integration, right? 10 years ago, we didn't see very many WMS integration with the TMS outside of just a basic pass-through. Today, it's very tightly integrated. And I think when you add in visibility, when you add in labor systems, when you add in yard and dock and appointment scheduling applications, all of a sudden, we can really tune the labor model based on both primary and secondary network. And the cost is we need to do some integration work. We need to do some, we need to cross the silo and look over the wall here to distribution if I'm in the transportation function. So those things are positive. Sometimes they're challenging organizationally. There's oftentimes some turf battles, but these are really good battles to have because, to your point, with your client example of 50% labor savings, it's real, it's tangible, and it saves a lot of money.
Well, and we even see this with the software vendors where they have a traditional, here's our mapping, here's our inbound and outbound transactions, and they're very, like you said, siloed. They were built a long time ago. They were identified as here's the one input and here's the one output, but it doesn't really orchestrate, like you mentioned, of all the communication back and forth, because ultimately it's about speed, performance, and visibility. And if we can have all those things working well, it makes a huge difference.
That's right, Brian. Good point. And I think that's a great place to put a pin in this labor and liquor conversation. So speaking of liquor, what do you have available with yourself today?
So I have a glass here that has some liquor in it, but we have decided that we're going to leave that to those in the chat to guess what that liquor is.
Yeah, mine is also a mystery drink. You're welcome to guess at it. It's in a 30-ounce mug. If that gives you any clues. So it's probably not whiskey. Or is it?
Speaking of whiskey, I learned a lot about whiskey between whiskey and bourbon and the differences between the two. And that, it's based upon the amount of rye as well as the location of where they are made. Did not know that until last week.
Did you go on a tour?
No, I just talked to one of our mutual friends.
Good stuff, Brian. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I hope you and your family and loved ones have a very happy Christmas and New Year if we don't talk between then.
Sounds great. You as well.
Yeah, there's no question, Brian, that we are now officially in the dork zone. I've always been a fan of Santa's elf. Well, my ears misadjusted there. So there we go. This will keep you warm in the wintertime, Brian.
Hey, that's awesome. And for those of you that have seen Ant-Man, I love that movie. And so my son gave me this little Ant-Man guy, which is pretty cool. And if you guys have seen that movie, I got a trophy from one of my daughters that just said world's best grandma. And if you've seen the movie, you would get it. Yeah, she tried to make me cry. It actually worked.
I didn't get the movie reference. What was it?
So that was also Ant-Man.
Oh,
So in
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man, there was a trophy that the daughter gave, and there was only one trophy in the store, and it said "World's Greatest Grandma." So she got it for her dad.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Brian, I thought you would keep pulling up little figurines like, oh, and here's my GI Joe figurine, and here's my Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi figurine. Here's my Millennium Falcon.
Well, when you got lots of kids that just that are all older now, but you got to keep them. So
yeah, that's it.
Not just the kids, you got to keep the toys too.
I keep the toys.